Kitchenroom Productions.
We got the lovely Queen Herawin in the kitchen room right now. Clap it up one time.
We got the lovely, legendary, I don't know, what else we got? What else starts with an L? Luscious. Queen Herawin in the place, man. No doubt about it.
Thanks for having me out here, y'all. Yeah.
You made it to the Jersey side, man. We've been trying to work it out. I'm glad you can make it out. See that?
Thanks to this guy over here, man.
And who's that guy?
That is Carter P. What up, Carter P? Doing his thing with the new album, yo. Clap it up one time for Carter P.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Beautiful mess. Go pick it up. People were very excited to know that you were going to be on. I know people were like very interested. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm going live too. You
going live? Okay.
Multiple streams.
Let me take my shirt off. Hold on a second.
Okay. Hold on. We're about to get some more streams. Wait, hold on, y'all.
If I knew you were live,
something exciting happening about that.
I would have got naked.
Well, this is Flip the Script Radio, and if you did the research, you'll notice that we didn't have too many female MCs in the past, and it's not because we didn't want them on the show.
Sure.
For some reason, they're just not reaching out to us. I don't know. Maybe it's a
or
girl
is it
guy
the
thing.
other way around?
No. We reached out to
Have you?
several. Yeah, we reached out to several.
Okay.
I think maybe it's location, timing.
I was
It
about
could
to
be.
say y'all deep, y'all far
Yeah, we out here.
Yeah.
But-
But it's so important to have the voice.
Yeah,
so we appreciate that.
Yeah, we was waiting for a dope female to come along, and
And here I am.
here you are.
Well, that's the other side of it. I mean, that's what I was going to say. You know as well as I do that, most women that are doing this outside of like the underground circuit are making certain types of records that are not really for this show.
Yeah, that's been the interesting controversy of late, and as a female MC and as an MC, that's such a touchy subject these days because, it goes both ways. There's so many men that are just making so much nonsense.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's just music across the board. I think
Right.
what makes it different is that, as women, it's just a smaller demographic, even though there's tons of hell of us out here.
Yeah, like we were talking.
Right, but publicity-wise, right? We're not promoted in the same way.
Definitely.
Right?
And we were talking about that earlier in the show. Like, all of a sudden, at some point in like the 90s, there came this whole like, and now I'm gonna play a joint for the ladies, and like all of a sudden, like the ladies had like an entirely. There was always hip hop. Like I missed the diehard hip hop chicks.
Oh yeah, for
Remember
sure.
the hip hop chicks? Like
we out here.
You dance with them in the club, and they $150 somebody after the club. You know what I'm saying?
They probably
Whatever.
still doing a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably what happened.
So did you run into some of that stuff? Though? Did you run into people expecting you to make certain kinds of records just based on your, the fact that you're female, your appearance, all that kind of stuff?
That's a good question. For me, that was never really an issue, right? And it was never really an issue for me because I grew up at a time when, MC Light,
Right.
Queen Latifah,
Legend.
Sweet Tea, Bahamadia.
Doesn't get
shout out
mentioned
to
enough at all.
So it's like at a time where hip hop was hip hop regardless of your gender. It was just hip hop.
Right.
And so that's the fabric of who I am and where I came from and what I know. And then being part of, Juggaknots, I mean, it's not just in your environment as far as what you're listening to musically or turning on video music box, which is what I did every day after school, and we did that. But then I was going home with people who were creating, like my brothers. Like there are a lot of people, I think after a couple of years, people now know, like, okay, Juggaknots, those are actually her brothers. But for those who don't know, shout out to Breeze Brewing, shout out to Kev Fever. It's like, for people who don't know, those are my brothers.
Okay.
But I think like part of what you were talking about though, when you were talking about the era you came from, like all the people in our age group, we came from the hip hop movement before it became compartmentalized. It was just hip hop, and anybody that was involved was just doing hip hop.
Right, because that was the standard.
Right, that's
and
all
that's
it
what
was.
we knew.
Right.
And so you just did more of that. It's like, when you think about Harlem Renaissance, it's like nobody was slouching with their craft because everybody was within that same style of creation. Yeah, you either didn't come correct at all, you didn't come at all, or you came correct. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to make sure your music or your art was up to par.
And plus you had an audience that knew what they were looking at and they were critical. They could be critical. Right.
For sure. And also appreciative because they were part of that essence as well. So it was like a movement together. It's like, we were creating, but then you had the fan base. It was one unit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where it's so separated now.
It's just, I think you're a little bit of an anomaly, though. Shout out to the anomalies.
Shout out to the anomalies.
You like how I'm learning this radio stuff. You like that?
Yeah, that was a nice transition. Very nice. Nice incorporation.
But I'm saying, like, most female MCs, even the dope ones, were chasing kind of like the major label deal. I don't know if they were as involved in the indie scene as deeply and in the same way that you were. I think
Oh,
your
yeah, we
involvement
were.
was a little bit different than a lot of.
We were in the fabric. I mean, and again, coming up with it, not just in my external, like, oh, that's what I'm listening to. My brothers, like, yo, if you can't rhyme over whatever tempo, then you can't rhyme.
Well,
If you can't, like, there were certain things that you just learned how to do, and that was just the etiquette of being an
You
MC.
mean it was no switch the beat up? Nah, not that one.
Right.
Give me
They
the
was
other
like,
one.
all right, then that means you got to go back and practice again. And I
Right.
definitely had that experience too. I mean, I observed my brothers doing what they did, and that's why, Gypsies, shout out to MF Dub, Sev, even, it's weird because it's splintered, but Gypsies was like a female Wu-Tang years ago.
Oh, yeah?
And it was like, a lot of different women from Virginia, which now, shout out to Key Turner, shout out to Gangali.
Oh, we played
Like,
the Key
Yeah,
Turner
yeah.
joint.
so
Yeah,
Key, we were part of a group. We
Yeah.
were part of.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We were part of a group years ago
it
called
made
Gypsies.
it made the feature track on the track list.
You're right, right, yeah.
So it's like we've been doing what we've been doing for a very long time. It's
Interesting,
just
man.
seeping into the creeks and crevices now. Like, oh, word, that was you. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
New Eurekan, outside. Even I went shout out to those at Old Westbury. Like, I was in there rhyming in the cafeteria.
What about the wetlands? Remember
Of course, multiple times.
Wetlands was like
Wetlands
home.
was
Yeah, definitely.
Right now, A Beautiful Mess is the #1 hip hop album in the country because
It's yours.
no,
Because it's good.
good.
Because
no,
it's
not just
quality
that,
music.
but I spoke about my life, and I can't tell you how many phone calls, and text messages, and inboxes I got just about my story and my journey, and how many other people are dealing with that same thing. Like for me, with the creation of A Beautiful Mess, I dealt with high levels of trauma, not even seeing my son.
Yeah, we
And,
played that joint. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like the gift and the curse at the same time, because it was a period of me like I didn't even want to do this rap shit no more, and
Yeah.
parental. I'm not trying to get emotional, but
That's all right. It's Flip the Script Radio, man. This is live, real
about
radio,
honesty.
man.
Parental-
It's honesty.
parental was sending me so many tracks, and if you listen to Misunderstood, I described that moment when he sent me that track and I wrote that song. But if it wasn't for Parental, DJ Parental, I love you, my bro.
Shout out to
Shout
Parental.
out to Parental.
You wouldn't
Yeah.
even hear this pain that I wanted to like convey to everybody, and
Yeah.
I had a story to tell,
Word.
and just the inspiration. Like when I was here before, I told you my favorite album was The Book of Ryan by Royce the 5'9", and I felt his pain. It's a good album. It's a fucking good. It was the best album of 2018 for those that listened. But I felt the pain, and I wanted to tell my journey and my story through my own lens. So, it's funny how like God works. Like, I have my son, and that was my inspiration. I named myself after my son. But DJ Parental, after this whole project was done, he welcomed a baby girl.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
the world.
congrats.
Future couple.
Yeah,
A hip hop
Congrats.
couple.
Congrats.
August 28th.
Yes, congrats.
No, I'm sorry, my fault. Yeah, August 28th. But, it's like I wrote this album through pain with my son, and Parental, he didn't have children at the time when we started building, and then at the completion of the project, God blessed him with a daughter. So
Wow.
there's clearly a higher being with this hip hop shit that
it
we're
up for
doing.
that.
That's
Yeah, so-
musical energy.
First of all, I wanted to pop a bottle of champagne for y'all. 'Cause when you was
See
at
how
the
he
pa-
done took it to the
Yeah.
head though already, right?
Yeah, because when you was at the party, bro, I heard you mentioning, our celebration.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, you saw all the dime pieces in there, right?
Yeah. Let me tell you, even my wife was like, why don't you bring one home? Hey, listen.
You guys are crazy.
But yo, they could not stop talking about the music and
Yeah,
the
you
way
killed it.
Oh, thank you.
killed
Appreciate
it,
it.
man.
killed
It
it.
kept everybody engaged, man, and it was just such a beautiful day.
It was a
Yeah.
beautiful mess. That's what it
It
was.
was a
man.
beautiful mess. He's really good at the transitions. He's been doing this for
He's
a
pretty
while.
good.
A
He's
little
pretty
bit.
good.
Good.
Salute to you,
Thank
bro.
you, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate
man,
it.
you
No
held
doubt.
it down. Old school, new school.
Hey, listen, when the atmosphere is right, like that's what we were talking about. The atmosphere just dictated what it dictated. You know what I'm saying? And that's,
Hold on,
that's,
pardon me one second. How you gonna pop that? Not pour a little something for
Yo,
me though.
but there's another bottle
You
to
got a
your
bottle
right.
right there.
Come on.
well, then
there's
pop
no-
that shit for me.
Sipping, yo, what West Side say on the joint? sipping on Vouv. My little nigga dropped out the
He already
first day
know.
of
My
school.
only problem is to get the.
Was there a time? Was there a lull in your musical creation?
Hell yes.
There was some time that you took some time off?
Oh, for sure.
Was
I
it
mean,
done
we're-
purposely or?
Oh
Just-
no, I would say a combination of yes and no, but I would say more no, and I would say life and circumstances, you know, and so literally coming here, you know, I came straight from work, so again, in addition and as well with Carter, it's like we're all also educators,
Right.
So I left my class and was like, all right, we're leaving out 10 minutes early, and they were like, "Word, okay, great, no
We love
problem,
you.
we love you, you know, how about 20 minutes?" I'm like, you pushing it. So it's like between balancing, I guess I'll call it 9 to 5, being a full-time educator in addition to being a mother, full-time mother, which also had its interesting turns. But it's like, you know, you have life. Life
Right.
happens, and then when we're doing things that we're doing at this level, right? Not that it takes away from the significance at all, but we're literally doing it right now, like, yo, kitchen series. Like, it's intertwined, it's intermingled with your life, with your everyday life, and you have to find creative ways to find that balance, right?
Right.
And so sometimes you might have to put something to the side. If you come home extra tired after a full week of work,
It's tough.
you may not be giving your wife the loving she need at
Right.
that moment, or vice versa. It's like, you know, everything has its time. And so the music sometimes had to take the back burner, whether it was because monetarily it wasn't there, and I had real life bills and real life things to take care of, you know, or because you get exhausted doing what we're doing because the support isn't necessarily always there. You
Right.
have to be your own cheerleader sometimes.
Now let me ask you this: there's a lot of people from
Thank you.
the hip hop movement, and especially from like the indie
Chin.
movement of the '90s, that wound up in education for some reason. I know a lot of them, and I know it's got to be a little difficult when you come from the era where, you know, when we were trying to forge this music and give it its credibility, and, you know, because
Yeah.
in the beginning people didn't really kind of take it seriously. So the generation that put the work in to get it to where it eventually got,
Yeah.
and then to see what it's become, and
Yeah.
then to see, and we're not gonna have that. That discussion
We
is.
can have that forever.
We could talk about that forever.
Right.
But when you work directly with the youth and you see the effects that it has, and you remember the effects that it had at one time, like
Right.
it really will have you thinking about some conspiracy theory shit. Like, was this shit infiltrated to create this?
Yeah, we were
You know what I'm
literally,
saying?
again,
Like-
both being in education, we were just talking about that on the way up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would say that the unfortunate thing is that, yeah, there's definitely a lot less in some ways than what we had for that authenticity, but it shifted. You know, it always shifts. It's like some people hated fucking disco,
Yeah.
you know, and then other people's like, oh shit, disco's dope. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right, right.
And some people not like, nah, just give me funk. And then you had some people who were on the borderline. I mean, Rick James doing both. So it's like, you know, musically with what we're seeing now, of course, a lot of it is trash, a lot. But it, you know, you also have to experiment, I believe, in order to get to a certain place within your own self developmentally. And the difference for, I think, them, right, meaning now, is we had to practice to get to a certain point. Like, you couldn't get in a cipher unless you was strong within
Right.
what you was doing, or you getting straight. Like, what are you doing? Like, you getting muffed out of there.
Back
Like,
to the critical audience. Like, people knew. Like,
Exactly.
people knew. Right,
exactly.
Right, right.
Where now it's like people have their own cheerleaders. They could be whack and they just post it and it don't matter. So there's no filtration process.
Right. We talk about that all the time.
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of different. But what's dope as an educator is we can identify. Like, I shut them down, like, real quick. And I can also relate.
Do your students know about your musical history? You try to keep that on the low?
Some do,
or-
some don't. Sometimes I try to keep it on the low. Like, one of my jobs, I actually almost lost my job. Like, I had to sit down with an administrator, and he was
Really?
like, what's this about? And are you into dealing with the students? And I was like, what?
Oh, wow.
And that's when Wake came out, and he knew about the Lyricist Lounge project, and he was a huge fan. He was shout out to Danny Cash and all the Lyricist Lounge folk and all that
no
good stuff.
doubt.
And so he was like, you know, why is he continually coming to your classroom? And he was just like, yo, can you sign the thing? Yo, I know your verse. Yo, the verse dope. And I was like, that's what's up. Good luck. Go back to class.
Yeah, give me a fuck,
You
get
know,
outta here.
right. But so there becomes a thin line. So sometimes I don't want to share it because of that. And then other times it's like our administrators, a lot of our administrators don't know, shout out to you, a lot of them don't know our culture.
No, right.
And that's where that disconnect happens,
Definitely.
right?
They only know one version of the culture. That's the thing. Like, you know, when you
And it's negative.
and it's negative, right? It's
Right,
why
right.
sometimes you're so hesitant. I know, because I know I am. When you tell people you're a DJ, they just assume that you know, your weddings, bar mitzvahs, that kind of stuff. Like you can't get into the whole discussion.
Right. Oh, I do hip hop. Oh,
but it's the same
like
thing,
booties
right?
and
It's the
stuff.
same thing with
Right,
hip hop.
right.
Like, you know, people's exposure is limited. It's not the same as, you know.
For sure, or they only have this contemporary view.
I'm gonna interrupt with that.
Yeah.
I
Please
got
do.
so many phone calls since Friday, September 20th, but I got a phone call this morning. I was taking a shower.
It's not even Saturday.
I know, right? And shout out to my
Such
man
men
Al
in
Born
here.
from Mount Vernon.
All men right in
That's
here.
right.
Shout out to my man Al Born from Mount Vernon. But you know, from the sandbox to the football field to the basketball court to the booth, you know, he told me, he said, yo, you know, when I heard A Beautiful Mess, he said you changed the game where you didn't put an age limit on hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like some of the stories and things that you talked about is like shit that I want to talk about. But this is the only genre of music we put an age limit on it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many dope hip hop artists with
Right.
stories
Mm-hmm.
and things that we still need to talk about to build a culture
Sure.
that people get boxed in like they don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I can just tell you as an administrator, yes, I'm an administrator, been in the education game for 23 years. I caught a lot of flack on this track, on this album. But I talked about my life. And I knew that if I talked about my life like this, I knew it had to resonate with other people.
Sure.
And like how you said, P, when we was
Yeah.
coming here, like, people gonna feel the real shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's
because
like you
can
talked about that
identify-
creative writing course you took when you was younger.
Yeah, we were talking about
Yeah,
you either
like-
tell the truth or it's a complete lie with writing. Like one of my old professors, creative writing, and we were sharing that. We were talking about that. It's like you go hard all the way with one thing or the complete opposite so that it's believable either way. You never sway. You never do in between. You know, and we just, I guess who we are, we just gonna come with that honest shit.
And definitely we got to, at the same time, we got to call out the people from our generation that feel like they had to cater and go in a certain direction, and then they complain about where we are. It's like, listen, we could have prevented this. Like we were supposed to, you know.
How many albums are we gonna hear about a Fed case?
Yeah. No, but you touched
No,
something.
I'm being serious. How many albums are we gonna hear about all the bricks you hustle back and forth up and down
That's all you
95?
hear. That's all you hear.
Yeah.
I mean,
or scissor and lean.
I
Look,
get it,
Look,
but like, it's middle-aged professionals
Right.
that like love this hip hop shit.
Well,
Like,
because
there's so many other things
came
to
up
talk
on
about.
it,
you
yeah.
touched on it, and you're going back to it again, and it's something I've always said throughout the course of this show. You know, hip hop is the only music genre that's treated like a sport, where you know, if you get over a certain age, you can't
Good
box
point.
no more, or you can't play ball no more. Like if you
Yeah.
can, golfers can play all day, right? They keep
But
going.
to me, that
You
goes
know,
back to the value.
It goes in
Or the
hip
lack
hop.
of.
In hip hop.
yeah.
The logic is the longer you've been doing this, the better you get, right?
That's why I
you
said.
don't
Right.
you don't sprain the knee and you're done. Like
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Right.
But
right.
you.
That's
well,
why I said A Beautiful Message is the best album in the country, because
It's that
I
group,
never,
right.
I did not mention any bullets, any Fed cases, or any drugs that I pushed,
Because
because
did
I
it-
ain't grow up
did it
like
happen
that.
to you?
I ain't grow up like that.
whole- Jesus Christ! Damn, that was a banger. Oh, we gotta get another round of applause for that one right there.
Yeah.
Another
yeah.
production,
Shout out to Ty Phoenix,
lyrics.
Carl.
So I
Crazy.
feel like that's the joint that a lot of guys that are like, I don't like female MCs. That's the joint that could convert them. You know what I'm
Yes.
If
saying?
that doesn't convert him, then you're not a hip hop head.
That's like
and you don't understand what we do.
Whole bunch of dudes was feeling it in the chat.
definitely, especially the
Oh.
titties.
Real
part.
MCs too.
You're crazy.
They said something about that.
There's a lot more than titties, but titties are there too. Shout out to my mama for some beautiful ass jugs.
Let me
Thanks,
tell you,
Mama.
Flip the Script
Thank you,
Radio.
Mom.
We are here live, and we can attest to the homegrown titties have been homegrown,
official.
and they're
Kevin's not gonna kill me. I'm not gonna co-sign.
They're official. Thank
Kevin-
you, mama, and thank you,
Fever, no.
and thank you, my half-white grandmother for beautiful breasts.
oh, what? Yeah, of course. And if you
Of
ever
course, you got to shout.
Rings.
Look at it. Hold on. Did you see the post? Did you see? Shout out to Kev Fever. He just said, Who makes it hot? Tell them to put it on.
They got their Facebook Live thing going on over here. They got their phones facing them.
Share that with you.
Fever, I
Shout
love
out
you.
to Fever. Shout out to my brother Fever.
Don't talk about that story.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that story. That's for another time, meaning
come
another
on,
time.
let's talk about it.
But shout out to Kev Fever.
And just for
He is
future
a
reference,
genius.
if you ever need any hooks sung, hit me up. That's my forte.
Is it?
I don't
Okay,
know
so
if
we'll
I don't know
get.
if you knew that.
Okay, now
Yeah,
we know.
Definitely.
Now we know.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Now we know. No, now he's definitely
Nah,
going to be on
all
something.
day, all day. Hit him up for scratching. Like,
Well,
hit
that's
him
the
up on that.
obvious,
You
but
gotta
now I'm
scratch
curious, and now
lyrics.
we're gonna have that
Do not
too.
hit this motherfucker
This guy's a hater, man. This guy's a hater.
Yeah, you're a hater. Get out
He's
of here.
singing.
Ever since I started my singing career, he's been a hindrance and a huge.
Really?
See, Reality is singing on one of my songs.
That's
I'm just
right.
putting that out
Yeah,
there.
man, the ladies are gonna love that one.
I agree.
So take note to that, you
Yes.
New Jack. Let's get into this mother's regret.
New Jack.
This mother's regret joint.
Old word,
Jack
New
City.
Jack.
Hey, listen,
New Jack
yeah,
City.
yeah,
Still a
what
great
is it?
word. It's a great word. Come on.
But listen, it's old, but it's applicable.
Of course, I think New Jack City.
Did I pronounce that?
Yes.
Is it applicable or is it applicable? Or
No,
You said it
applicable.
right.
Please, no.
We got too many educators
It's
in
the
here.
latter. It's the first, rather. It's the first.
I'm getting nervous in here. Too
No,
many
no, you
educators.
good. You good. You
Is
didn't
there
fail.
a- is
You're
there a-
passing.
Is there a quiz after the show?
There's
That's what I
no
want to
quiz.
know. Okay.
You are the teacher right now, so we're good. We're in your
right.
classroom.
All right, here we go. Well, that's good luck to. Let's see. Everyone in this room has an IEP. Let's just put it that way.
That's okay. I'm familiar with those. All right.
Somebody call the CST. We're gonna have an IEP meeting.
and
Matt's is
that's
this
okay.
thick.
And that's okay.
You work in a school system.
Everybody's
You
special.
dropping acronyms.
Everybody's a winner. Everyone gets a trophy.
Absolutely.
You have a 47 IQ, but yes, you're college material.